The great integrity imposes no action, yet it leaves nothing undone. Were governments to embrace it, everything would develop naturally. If thereafter an old ego should reincarnate, the already permeated primal simplicity would neutralize it in its pervasive silence. Returning to silence is returning to peace. Returning to peace, the world reharmonizes itself. You can readily recognize the highest virtuousness because it never places itself on display. You can readily recognize the lowest virtuousness because it is always announcing itself. The highest virtue quietly serves universal needs. The lowest virtue actively strives for personal success. The highest morality serves common needs. The lowest morality is self-serving. True benevolence acts without intention, but when rituals go unheeded, they are enforced with rolled-up sleeves. Failing the great integrity, we resort to virtuousness. Failing virtuousness, we resort to moralizing. Failing moralizing, we resort to dogma, the most superficial form of faith and loyalty, and the nourishment for confusion. Natural persons are attracted to substance rather than form, to the nutritious fruit rather than the enticing flower, to that which dwells deeply within rather than to that which clings superficially to the surface. In ancient times, all entities had their own integrity and function. The sky was clear and endless. The earth was calm and firm. The gods were charged with spiritual powers. The wells were clean and full. The 10,000 creatures were healthy and fecund. Leaders were elected to plan the work and defense of the community. How wondrously concordant. If the sky were not endless, it could have fallen. If the earth were not firm, it could have burst. If the gods did not exercise their spiritual powers, they would have been abandoned. If the wells were not full, they could have dried up. If the 10,000 creatures were not productive, they could have become extinct. If the leaders did not plan the work and defense of the community, they would have been replaced. In this way, each entity had its own essentiality, each part complementing every other. Nowadays, when the privileged among us identify themselves with the orphan, the widower, and the hungry one, it may be an opportunistic appeal for the support of the lowly, or a realization that loudly trumpeting self-glory negates itself, or a premonition that shining like jade and resounding like stone chimes attracts the desperate adventurers among those deprived of hope, inviting disaster among those who create these deprivations. The movement of the great integrity is infinite, yet its character is passive. Being defines every form of life, yet all originate in and return to non-being. When most people hear about the great integrity, they waver between belief and disbelief. When wise people hear about the great integrity, they diligently follow its path. When ignorant people hear about it, they laugh out loud. By this very laughter, we know its authenticity. It is said that enlightenment appears dark, the progressive way appears retrograde. The smooth way appears jagged. The highest revelation appears empty like a valley. The cleanest appears to be soiled. The greatest abundance appears insufficient. The most enduring inner strength appears like weakness, and creativity appears imitative. Great talents mature slowly, great sounds are silent, great forms look shapeless, transcendent squareness has no corners. The great integrity hides behind all forms, stubbornly nourishing the paradoxes that can enlighten us. The great integrity expresses one. One manifests as two. Two is transformed into three, and three generates all the myriad entities of the universe. Every entity always returns to yin after engaging yang. The fusion of these two opposites births the vital energy that sustains the harmony of life. But for most people, this harmony is decimated by inheriting a condition of misery and victimization. Politicians cleverly pretend that they too originate from the toxic soil of this misery, even while designing the very laws that legitimize politicians cleverly pretend that they too originate from the toxic soil of this misery, even while designing the very laws that legitimate victimization. But watch out, those who hoard over-sufficiency will be diminished, and those who are diminished will become bountiful. These commonly known truths that common people teach each other are also my truths. As you sow, so shall you reap. Such is the heart of my teaching in a world forced to live heartlessly.